your daily habits, your daily thoughts, your daily actions, all those things kind of create your life around it. So I think that if you change your habits, you will change your life. Even waking up a different time of day will expose you to new people when you go to the store. You'll be taking, a different route to the gym just because there's more traffic or things like that. So I think habits are like the most pivotal thing in order to change pretty much everything about your life.
Are you feeling the strain of trying to balance your personal and professional life? Are you wondering how to stay true to yourself amongst the chaos of everyday pressures? In this episode, I chat with Dr. Poulos, a preventative health expert with years of experience helping people align their lives for success. We discuss how to achieve your goals without compromising your well-being and offer practical advice on how to integrate your personal and professional ambitions with your true self. Welcome to Move Your Mind, where we uncover why you are holding yourself back from getting the life you want and what to do about it. With the help from high-achieving guests and experts in behavioural science, personal development, and the health and wellness space. Join us if you're ready to move out of your own way toward your ideal self. I'm your host, Nick Brax, and I've been working in the health and wellness space for the last 15 years, helping people find direction and gain the courage to take control of their life. My mission is simple: to help you learn everything that I wish I knew, so you can become your ideal self. Lacking guidance, I spent the majority of my youth feeling lost and disempowered, which led to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and substance abuse. Looking back, I didn't have the vocabulary to communicate what I was experiencing. And as a man, I didn't resonate with the emotional language used in traditional therapy. I didn't need to talk about my feelings. I needed tangible solutions to guide me toward building a life I was proud of. If you can relate, then this podcast is for you. In this episode, we discuss how to achieve success by aligning your personal and professional life with your true self. If you're ready to take action and build a stronger mindset, then keep listening. Christian, so nice to meet you, mate. Really appreciate you making the time to come on my podcast.
Nice to meet you, Nick. Thanks for having me on. Very excited to have an in-depth chat.
Yeah, no, same here, mate. It looks like you're doing some super interesting work. And I'll ask you now, like we sort of normally just start off by asking the guest for a bit of a background and, their story essentially of how you came to where you are now. So if you don't mind sharing with our listeners, your background and what you're now doing.
Sure. So, I guess long story short, right now, I'll talk about the endpoint and then I'll talk about how I got there. So right now I'm like a high performance, health and fitness coach. So, typical training, nutrition, accountability, some sort of health in the background behind that. But I'm also a doctor. So the way I got here, I started medical school in 2019. Obviously thought I was going to be, some sort of surgeon or do some sort of type of sports medicine. I had an Instagram following at the time, just posted workouts because there's a lot of misinformation on the internet. 10 different gurus tell you 10 different things. So I wanted to just post about that just out of my own interest and curiosity. Thought it was fun. I used to make Call of Duty montages in the past when I was like 12 or 13. So I always had some sort of like creative outlet that needed to have. So a lot of it was on social media. So as I was going through medical school, posting on social media, I eventually realized that I did not like being in the hospital. It was not what I thought it was going to be. My parents are both Greek immigrants. So for us, it was like, you're either a doctor or a lawyer. That's how you're successful in life. Obviously, like the more education you have, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, the more education you have, the better off you'll be. And then I eventually realized I didn't really resonate with my personality. I kind of got the entrepreneur bug. So before I had been training people, in person just through college, just, for fun, friends, acquaintances, things like that. And then I eventually, to finance some of medical school because it was very expensive, I started an online, fitness coaching business just to help offset some of those costs. Especially during COVID, I had a lot of free time. I'm very type A personality, very routine, very structured. So I had the free time and I was able to juggle it. But then eventually, third, fourth year of medical school came around where you have a little bit more of, rotations, hospital, clinical type work. And I was like, I hate this. I was very depressed, had to start antidepressant at the time, which, I've since tapered off, learned a lot about myself, which I think, your audience can resonate with like the mental health and, side of things. And then fourth year of medical school is when I kind of scaled the business. Fourth year of med school is a lot more free time. So I scheduled a lot of online electives, a lot of ones that gave you a lot more free time. So, since then I graduated last year and I've been doing just my business full time. And then in the background, have the entrepreneur bug still. So working on some like telemedicine based clinics, have some other thoughts and aspirations, but, I feel like a lot of things are distractions. So currently just focusing on, the main thing that I'm doing, which is being, the doctor you see before you need to see a doctor in the first place. So that's a little bit about my background.
I love that, mate. And apologies if you see me dripping with sweat. I've just come back from the gym and I've turned my AC off.
Don't worry. I also scarfed a meal like right beforehand just to like make sure I had the brain power and the calorie and the energies in. So I might be the same.
Yes. And it's just, we're talking about it before we started, just relentless this weather in this part of the world. Like, and I'm from Australia, it's hot in Australia, but the humidity, I am just sweating. I'm going through t-shirts every day. Anyway, off topic, but no, that's a really, really cool what you're talking about there. And I love the fact that that organically came around and I mean, it also probably adds a lot of credibility for people and you having that extra expertise working with clients as a personal trainer, nutrition, whatever, but having the doctor sort of background as well. Like, I think everything comes full circle. So it's probably worked in your favor doing that. But interesting story that, went from the medical field to then, doing this to sort of support it to this becoming the main thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people, I mean, I guess first off, people love like the medical background side of things. So, I offer like blood work reviews, make the plans a little bit more personally tailored. Like I said, the doctor you see that has the medical knowledge and tries to avoid you having to see a doctor in the first place. So, of course, there's a component of, looking good, but also feeling good, performing better just in your day to day life. So, definitely something that a lot of people resonate with. And yeah, I guess quitting, I don't want to say quitting. I feel like I just pivoted my career a little bit. My parents hated it. Eventually they realized, it worked out. Doctors that I spoke to in the hospital thought I was insane, but I guess it's worked out okay. Not something you normally hear, but I'm very happy and satisfied, and I feel like the happiest I've been in a long time. So
No,
very
I
very
think it's a
grateful.
great example, mate. And I mean, that's the thing. People, I think a lot of the time we do what we think we should do rather than what we are meant to do. And it's
Yeah,
very easy to get stuck in that. And, it's a big part of this podcast about trying to trying to just share stories, information about there's no right or wrong path. And it's about trial and error. And, you sort of go down a certain path and you'll probably find what is right and wrong for you. And if you don't, I think, as you're talking about there, going down a path that probably your parents, couldn't have imagined a path they would be happier with, but you listened to your gut. You could have easily ignored that and probably stayed going down that path and been unhappy, suppressed yourself, had a great career, but it wouldn't have been what you wanted to do, and who knows where you're going to go
100%.
with everything now. But yeah, you have to listen to your gut.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it kind of ties to like my life philosophy. I think a lot of it is like having a more of a positive mindset and having the shift of like seeing as things happening for you rather than to you. It's like what can you learn from this experience? Where can you take this and apply it in the rest of your life? So, I think being open to those experiences, realizing that there's truly nothing off the table, there is no ceiling. I actually am reading a book now called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks is his name. Not sure if you've heard of it, but it kind of talks about, a lot of times we have like a we're feeling good and like we're almost used to kind of having this like negative experience. So we kind of limit ourselves on the good feeling. So a lot of it is like, kind of breaking through that ceiling and those patterns and just, letting life be, opening up yourself to all those experiences. So definitely resonate with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another big part, even how this name Move Your Mind came about is, it's for mental health, but about the fitness movement side of it. So I guess like how big of a correlation have you seen with fitness in terms of mindset and mental well-being of people?
Absolutely. And I always talk to my own clients as well and just, apply it myself. I think a healthy body is a healthy mind. And of course, a healthy mind is a healthy body. I think that um, another one, I'm a big man of like analogies and like life philosophy. So I think that in the sense of doing hard things every single day makes the rest of your life easy. So exercising, putting a heavy weight on your back makes you be able to handle everything else. You already woke up this morning, put hundreds of pounds on your back, lifted it, makes everything else easy. And of course, on the flip side, choosing easy things like, desserts, sitting on the couch, mindlessly scrolling makes everything else in life a little bit harder. So I think that's exercise and fitness is a perfect testament of that. And I even think that um, I'm not sure who talked about this. I think it might have been Dave Tate. He's like a power lifter, talked about health and fitness topics in the past. And he says that, the only time I could really clear my mind throughout the day and only be focused on the thing that I'm doing is when I had, 700 pounds on my back. I think it's a very meditative process and allows you to handle everything else that's going on in your life. And same thing, I've picked up running lately. I feel like that is a trend, just very meditative. Like you allow yourself to, the thoughts to flow. You're outside in nature. So I think there's a lot of different ways that it can kind of just make you a healthier person, both physically and mentally. So very much something I've applied in my life, and I'm sure you can resonate with that too.
Massively, mate. I mean, like for me, that's when I'm most creative, when I'll come up with, solve problems, or I'll be, ruminating on something. And if I go to the gym, or, I've always got my phone on me because I'll just be having to write down notes as I'm in the gym because I'm just thinking, my brain opens up and it gives you that space. And I think having that is just so important because we can get stuck in our head and we need, and it also grounds you for everything else you're doing as you're talking about. So, yeah, so important.
Yeah, definitely, and I feel like there's, like, even just, like, an anxious energy too. If I, like, don't get moving or if I don't get my, 8 or 10K steps a day, and I'm just like, "I need to do something." So and it's tough too 'cause I live in Denver, and it's been, like, 100 degrees and, very sunny every single day, which, is a blessing, no more seasonal depression compared to when I lived in Chicago and it was gloomy, but it is kinda get out there sometimes.
Yeah. No, well, I'm the same. Like, if I don't exercise every day, my girlfriend will have to literally push me out of the door because I'll be climbing walls, going crazy. I need to get that, release that energy and clear my head.
He's
So
he's he's a
it's so,
peacekeeper.
it's therapy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So you were talking before about, you're saying your self-disciplined habits, all that sort of stuff. How, in terms of fitness, for anyone listening, because I'm huge on habits, and same with me, routine, making something like fitness part of your day, the same as you eat, sleep, etc. How important is it that we find a way to do that if you want to make a long-term, routine in your life?
I think that your daily habits, your daily thoughts, your daily actions, all those things kind of create your life around it. So I think that if you change your habits, you will change your life. You know, even waking up a different time of day will expose you to new people when you go to the store. You'll be taking, a different route to the gym just because there's more traffic or things like that. So I think habits are like the most pivotal thing in order to change pretty much everything about your life. And I think that really the four main things I talk about with myself are, movement, nutrition, stress, and sleep. Obviously, with movement, getting outside, going on walks, you'll be exposed to the sun, get vitamin D, breathe a little bit of nature, literally touch grass, as many people like to say. I think it's helpful. Going to the gym is going to be helpful just in terms of, clearing your mind, building up more muscle, building up more confidence. Of course, with nutrition, obviously nourishing your stomach, nourishing your body, feeling more energized by the nutrients that you're eating is going to be helpful. And then, of course, stress and sleep in the background. I think that those are key components as well. Because some other things I like to say, I'm going on a little bit of a rant here, so feel free to cut me
I know, I
off. But
like it. Please rant as much as possible.
all right, I'm a man of many words. I need to get them out. Normally very introverted. When I get the opportunity, I'm just like so many words. Um, but a lot of times I feel like we think of like or training and nutrition as like the hard hats, like they're like the workers for your body. But a lot of times stress and sleep are like the gatekeepers. If the gate is closed, all the work that you're putting in for everything else is not going to come out. So I think a lot of this kind of highlights also the importance of meditation, being more mindful of everything that you're doing, spending time in nature, hanging out with friends and family that you love. Cause I think that this is all like an inclusive process. And I hate the word holistic, but essentially what I'm trying to say is like holistic, that all these things kind of come together. The habits for all these things kind of influence everything in all the direction of your life. So hopefully that made sense. I wasn't too
It
rambling.
does. Well, I mean, holistic's a word that's used a lot, but it's so true. Like it really is, because if you don't sleep properly, you're probably not going to get up in the morning and go to the gym. If you do, you probably won't train properly. You're more likely to take a shortcut and eat junk food or whatever. And, it all has an ongoing effect. So it all sort of, you can't just do one thing. You've got to really monitor all parts of it. They all feed each other.
Exactly. And it is like a snowball effect too. Once you find yourself crushing in the gym, you're more likely to, have a protein shake after the gym, eat a little bit healthier. When you're eating a little bit healthier, you're more likely to go to bed at a good time, and these things all kind of slope all together. And a big thing that I think is important to capitalize on and just, commit to something.
Oh, 100%, 100%. So what would you say to another thing we hear from a lot of our listeners is they're wanting to make a change. They're wanting to, whether it's start a fitness routine, do something positive for themselves, but it can be hard to start, or you can get stuck in a rut and you can't get out of that. Like, do you have clients where you deal with that sort of situation? And what could you say to people that are feeling stuck like that?
I think a lot of it, there's multiple different aspects to things. So when I talk to like, a prospective client, of course we talk about their goals, like what are you looking to achieve? What does like a Nick 2.0 look like, a year's time from now? But also I think it's important to talk about, roadblocks. What are the roadblocks that you're facing? Really think about what is stopping you from doing something. Is it a component of work? Is it time? Do you have a lack of motivation? Do you just not know what to do? Do you need someone to keep you accountable? Is there a certain level of structure that you need? I think sometimes, we just think we want to lose fat or we think we want to build muscle or whatever it is. We don't think about what's stopping us. And then beyond that, from what's stopping you, I think that could definitely push you in a very certain direction, like getting a trainer or, whatever it might be. But then there's also like, why are you even doing this? Figuring out like your pain points essentially. And a lot of times I think there's like multiple layers of it. I think that, one layer of pain is, I want to look good with my shirt off, just because I don't feel confident. Another layer of that is I want to look good with my shirt off because I got bullied when I was young. And then another layer is I got bullied when I was young and, it made me feel really inadequate. And then as a result, I self isolated and I turned to food for comfort. I think sometimes thinking about those things, getting a little bit deeper, really can help you learn a little bit more about yourself and really just find different areas where you can, implement new ideas, new habits, as we talked about, and just improve altogether. So I think that's like, a lot of things that we talk about and almost talking about this sometimes a little bit of a cathartic experience for people. So I think by sometimes, going into those things will just kind of help out a little bit.
100%, because I think a lot of the time people don't make the time to, go that bit deeper because we get stuck on autopilot and, we fill every gap of the day and you never have time to sit and think, hang on, like, what do I actually want? What are the deeper reasons of why I want to do it? And I think unless you can peel back a couple of layers, it's kind of hard to sustain whatever it is you're doing. If it's not a strong enough reason, if it's only if it's more superficial, it's normally not that obtainable long term. So being able to really look into that's so important.
Exactly, and what you said with autopilot, I feel like highlights how a lot of people live their lives, especially, working a 9 to 5, coming home, letting out your dog, having the same, quick dinner, watching a show until you go to bed. We don't really I feel like we're very overstimulated in this society. We don't really have time to step back and just, think for ourselves. We're always inundated. I'm sure a lot of people have very high screen time. I'm guilty too. I'm not a perfect person, but I think a lot of times, everything in life is kind of designed to be a distraction and taking you away from, your pure self and all your great thoughts that you were, born and designed to have, I like to think.
Oh, it's difficult, exactly, and that's the thing. Like I mean, I'm interested to find out how you manage this, but for me, like I find it really hard where I'm using social media to run part of my business and a lot of networking, but
So hard.
I
So
also
hard.
I find myself continually spending too much time on there, scrolling, looking at things, and then it's like, oh god, it's so addictive, but it's just not good for me. But how do you manage, using that for business, but also not overdoing it?
Yeah, and it is tough. Like I actually found myself I was doing some dishes earlier today and I just like we have like a knife set kind of right by the sink and I just like put TikTok on my phone right like on the thing when I was washing the dishes and I just thought like what the heck am I doing? And I just like turned it off and put it away. So it is very challenging and I think we're all like guilty of having some sort of thing like that, but I'm not sure if it's an app on my phone or I just kind of like restrict usage. So I find myself more mindlessly scrolling TikTok. I feel like their algorithm is really on point. They know exactly what you want to see. So I kind of set reminders like every 10 minutes. It tells me like, hey, you spend too much time on this. And usually I just, learn to scroll, like, go out of it. But I think a lot of it also just has to do with, as I mentioned, just having a little bit more structure with your life. So for me, I use this app called Tick Tick. It's like a checklist to do list app that I kind of schedule things, every week, and they can recur. Every Sunday I wash something or vacuum or things like that. So it kind of helps me stay more mindful and focused because I get that like instant dopamine hit of like just checking something off as I did it. So I think a lot of it is just distracting myself from those things, pulling myself away. And then another thing that's been helpful just from like a business aspect of things is outsourcing a little bit, hiring some employees to take care of like, hey, which messages are important, clean up my inbox here, help me step away from the things that are kind of just wasting time and energy. And so I could focus more on the parts of the business that, actually help people generate revenue and things like that.
I love that. I love that. And it's a funny thing because like we a lot of the time it feels like it's boring to structure things and to have those like weekly things in place and plan out your day more, but the amount that it reduces anxiety is astronomical to just have
Yeah.
things a bit more pre-planned. It doesn't take a lot of effort, but a lot of the time we avoid it because we just want to think about other things and it's makes a big
Exactly.
difference.
And I think decision fatigue is like a big thing with it too, especially for, a lot of people. In the same way that muscles make your exercising make your muscles tired, a lot of times your brain is tired from making decisions all day. Family, emails, all those things kind of make you tired throughout the day. You're making decisions. One other person I like to highlight for this is Steve Jobs, who he wore the same like turtleneck and jeans. He opened his closet, there was this thing. He eliminated that decision, so he had a little bit more, mental effort and brain power for other decisions that were more important in his life. So I think by sometimes scheduling, automating things, aspects of your life that can be automated, I think takes off that mental load, so you could be a little bit less stressed for one, but also a little bit more creative and focused than all other areas of your life. And it sounds like you're doing.
Massively, mate. Yeah, I'd highly recommend that to anyone because it's just, like we're talking about before, we don't switch off otherwise. It's, where there's so many decisions all day, every day. If you're not making
Yeah,
decisions, you're stimulating yourself with something else. And our brain's not made to take in this much information. We get burnt out. It's just,
exactly.
it's not healthy. You can't really be happy if you're doing that. And it's just, I think simplicity is always the way to go. The more we can
Mhm.
simplify our life, the better.
Exactly, and I guess on that note, I think something that's relevant for the, staying off social media is kinda like trickling. So I feel like the visual, videos like Reels and TikTok are a little bit more overstimulating. So something that's been helpful for me just to kind of taper off is switching to reading more on, X or Threads. I feel like text-based posts and things like that, and even just eventually switching to longer form where you can actually, train your focus, train your engagement. It's kind of like that pivot I've tried to make with my own personal brand and also just like the content that I consume. I feel like writing is a little bit more, I guess, kind of the opposite of just like mindlessly scrolling. So I think that's something that's been helpful too, and just as a sort of creative outlet.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a great advice for anyone listening, replacing it because it can be hard to just completely be like, okay, I'm just going to stop completely. So
Yeah,
replacing it with
definitely.
something that's, yeah, what do I do?
Yeah.
Replacing it with something else. Uh,
Yeah.
so from your skill, like from studying to be a doctor, how much of that has helped you with your business today? Have there been certain things that you learnt or certain, discipline of it or things that have helped you in terms of running the business? Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, please click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram at NickBrax. I really appreciate your ongoing support.
Yes and no. So I first started exercising and lifting when I was like in 8th grade. So I was probably 13 years old. And I was probably the most disciplined. I was probably the most disciplined high schooler you've ever seen. Like, I was very on top of it, like, would track my macros. If we went out to, like, a family dinner, I'd be, like, mindful of what I ate so I could log it in, like, my app when I got home. I was very dialed and disciplined. So, I had some pretty good knowledge even going into, medical school. I studied neuroscience in undergrad, was on the powerlifting team. So, my knowledge from, like, the fitness aspect was, pretty sound and pretty good. But it was just medicine, I feel like, was, like, a deeper layer, especially into the health side of things. How are all the processes in your body functioning? What are all the common medications that especially, guys and women in their 40s, 50s, 60s are on? What is that doing to your body? What side effects can you experience? So I feel like there was already a level of knowledge, but it just got much more rich and deeper as I kind of progressed and went through. And also, I feel like it was a necessary experience for me just to, realize what I actually wanted to do. And a lot of it is, be more of like the health and longevity side of things instead of, not to say doctors are like pill pushers or anything like that. I think that there's two sides to that, but just kind of managing people's conditions without them truly getting better.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think, that preventative side is critical because we've got, it's the same with mental health. There are so many reactive services that are critical, obviously, but there's nowhere near enough good quality preventative services out there. And that's the only way we can really make a big change long term. We need to educate people, teach them how to be sustainable so they don't have to end up, as you were saying before, helping people not end up having to actually be going to the doctor or whatever it is that you're needing, be able to create this um, a healthy routine so you can avoid that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, what you're doing here is great too. I think a lot of it kind of stems from your mind, your mindset, shaping your mind and mindset. And I think a lot of other things kind of trickle down from there. Even like, just finding success in something that you're doing, I think will build confidence, will make you more successful in something else. And these things all kind of, I think life is very interested in how a lot of these things are interconnected, all strings kind of pulled together without us even noticing it. So I think that, a lot of it kind of comes from the mind.
100%, 100%. Everything's sort of interconnected.
Yep.
So
Yep.
how do you, again, a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurial, wanting to do their own business. Some of them are. What would doing what you're doing? We're talking about before how hard it can be to not be working 24/7. How to create habits, how to manage things with all the different moving parts of what you're doing. How do you structure that? How do you manage it all?
Well, I mentioned the to-do list as one, but I think also I don't know. I don't think entrepreneurship is necessarily for everyone too. Like I figured out that I like, and then this kind of tied into like why I left medicine as well. I like being very independent. I liked working on my own. I realized during COVID, like when we had, pretty much online school, I get everything done early in the morning. And then afterwards, I just wanted to work. And it kind of stems from my mom. My mom is like, this 5'2", Greek woman who's like cleaning the house up and down. And then by the time it's done, she starts over, she's cooking on top of that. She's calling all of her friends, very social. So I feel like I kind of got some of that. That like I just need to be working. I feel like it makes me feel like I'm doing something. And then eventually also like the mindset of like not just being busy for the sake of being busy, channeling into something creative, I think just kind of resonates with my personality. And that doesn't mean that, if you don't have this kind of personality, you can't be an entrepreneur or something like that. I still think it means that you just kind of need to realize what your strengths are, what you're good at, and then kind of play that into the role that you'd like to take on, with whatever business you'd like to build. And for me, it's being very rigid, very strict. I don't want to say like strict, but routine and regimented in terms of like what I'm doing, scheduling things in advance, and then just being disciplined on top of that to make sure that I can take care of that. And obviously, being married now, having two dogs, hopefully, being a father sometime, in the future, I feel like it's my responsibility to take care of that. So, that's another layer of like, where do I want to be in the future? What does, Christian at 40 years old, 50 years old look like? And, that drives me, that motivates me. So I think a lot of it has to do with like, structuring your life, understanding yourself, and then, remembering your motivation behind it all.
Absolutely. But I think that's such a good point, like really finding what it is that you want to do and that drives you, but where, to the point where, of course, it's going to be difficult. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to be disciplined. But is it something you're actually driven to do? Would you do it if could only make X amount of money? Because I think a lot of people in the world we're living in now want to, looking for get rich quick schemes or looking for, how can I just make money? How can I find a business that I can get into, even if I don't like what I'm doing? And the chances are it probably won't work. But if it does work, how happy will you really be if you're not even caring about the cause of what you're doing? I think sounds like there's probably nothing you would rather be doing than what you're doing, day to day.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of this kind of, if you kind of dumb down all the feelings and emotions that you're chasing in life, at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of it just we're all chasing happiness, we're all chasing fulfillment. I think if you focus on getting those two things first, money will come, all the other like, positive things and, Lamborghini, whatever you want, I think will come from, trying to find happiness and fulfillment. And, I think a lot of this kind of comes to, finding your purpose. What do you feel like you're put on here for? What would you do if money wasn't a thing and didn't matter? And I think I'd be doing a lot of the very similar things. Maybe I'd take a vacation, but I'd be doing a lot of the similar things, otherwise.
Exactly. That's it. The crazy thing is the world has taught us to do things, I think, like exactly what you said there, the opposite way of what we should be doing, because the world's telling us, go and you've got to be successful. You've got to tick all these boxes. You've got to make X amount of money. And then you can finally be happy and maybe do what you want to do, when it makes a lot more sense. And this is what I've always applied to my life. Why not find what you actually want to do? Try and do that. Try and, find the relationships you want to have. And then from that standpoint, of course, try and make as much money as you can. Try and be as successful as possible. The money will come from that. But you're not basing your happiness on that. You're actually spending your time day to day doing the things you would do regardless. So you can't really lose. You're not banking on some future thing that may or may not happen.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, it really does kind of come down to chasing that fulfillment, and then things kind of fall into place from there. And I also have like the like a time in the past, very recently where I was miserable, not happy, woke up with dread every single day. And now, realizing I can wake up with excitement. I think finding something that has you waking up every single day, ready to tackle it is really like the feeling that we should all be, kind of chasing. But even then, recognizing that, emotion could be fleeting. At the same time, I think about this is going to be philosophical, but I think about my own happiness levels. I think I'm pretty similar happiness to, some point in my undergraduate studies or in like high school when my parents were taking care of me. So I think that always like keeping that in mind that you're always going to be chasing the next thing and taking a step back to be present also, I think is important to realize, how far you've come, realize how great things are. I'm sure most people watching have food on the table, have shelter, have access to at least some sort of air conditioning. Maybe we're a little bit strange on the outside of things, but I think being is also a component there as well.
Yeah. Reminding yourself that there's no sort of endpoint. It's not like you reach a certain level and you feel better, you're happier, like life might become more comfortable. Like you're saying, maybe great, if I've got more access, I can go on nicer holidays or do this or buy the nicer car. But it's not like you reach a point where you just feel automatically happier. It's like we've got to find that right now. We've got to create that in ourselves right now.
Right, right, and it's challenging. Some people go their whole lives without realizing that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So what we finish with five closing questions. Before I go into that, I just want to ask you, you obviously keep fit and everything, you're training other people. What do you do for yourself? What are some things daily or weekly you do for your mental health and well-being?
So I do think a lot of it kind of comes down to, of course, exercise, nutrition, and I think a lot of it is just having a component for like recovery and quality time for like hobbies and things like that. So on the exercise side, I train 3 full body workouts a week, usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then I'd like to go on 3 runs, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, just to make sure I'm doing some activity, for the most part. Also, now that we live in Denver, we have access to a lot of hikes. So, we ski in the winter, when it's not 100 degrees and blasting sun, we like to go on hikes and just get out in nature. So that's a big component of that. Otherwise, I get 10,000 steps a day for the most part. I have 2 big dogs, so they like being outside, and it's like, a fulfilling, moment to be out with them. And then, of course, on the nutrition side, of course, I think eating unhealthy and just, eating the majority of your diet processed junk food is going to give you a little bit more brain fog, make you just feel worse. But I think there's a component of balance as well. So a pretty like 80-20 diet, 80% whole unprocessed foods, meats, lean, veggies, fruits, things like that. And then 20% flexibility, have the occasional ice cream, have the occasional French fry. It's not going to be the end of the world. I think stressing out about a lot of those things is going to be worse in the long run. So try to find that sort of balance. And then, of course, spend quality time with my wife, friends. I do have some sort of like spiritual practice as well, being mindful, and then, just allowing myself some time to rest as well. I'm very like workaholic person, and I think that realizing that rest is productive is also something that's helpful just to, be able to take a step back and enjoy things for what they are.
Oh, totally, mate. Can totally relate. I'm very similar. And I think I force myself to have, one rest day every Sunday. Don't exercise, try and not think about work. At least, one, you need to sort of shut yourself off sometimes. Otherwise, it's just too much. But I love all the stuff you're sharing there.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, I was gonna say even on the, like, rest side of things, like, maybe there's just, like, a random Wednesday afternoon where I don't have any meetings, and I'm like, I don't really feel up to it." Even just, like, auto-regulating, taking some of those breaks when you need it, I think is helpful too.
100%. Listen to your body, listen to your mind. If you're feeling like you need a break, give yourself a break. You don't have to, like, sometimes it can really help. So it's important.
Rest, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Well, these five closing questions we finish with. The first one is, what's your best childhood memory that comes to mind?
Oh my gosh. You never told me we were gonna get so deep. Um, um, so this is also kinda tied into one of my worst childhood memories, and by worst, it's just, like, kinda like a pivotal moment. So, fun fact about me, even though I was born in the US, English was not my first language, so I spoke Greek until, like, sometimes towards the end of, like, the first year of preschool. So one of my core negative memories was not knowing how to speak to anyone in preschool, like, just because I only spoke Greek, obviously, there was no Greek kids in the preschool, and crying on a bench. And then I remember, like, on the flip side, one of my happiest moments was seeing my parents come pick me up, and then I feel like that kinda ties into, like, my personality too. Like, I'm a homebody, love being home, love getting my work done, just being a little bit more independent in, like, where I am. So, one of my core childhood memories that I think is helpful is, 1, my mom picking me up from preschool after that moment, and 2, I spent a lot of time in Greece in the summers visiting family, and it's, like, not like the Greece you think of, like, Mykonos and Santorini where it's, like, nice white, buildings and whatnot. This was, like, the village with, like, tractors and goats, and I just feel like, waking up smelling like the dust in the outdoors just kind of highlights, the nee- that you only need like simplicity in your life, and like all the things that are put on this earth can make you happy. And I feel like that's a core memory as well.
I love that, mate. Well, thank you for sharing that one. Yeah, I love that. I love that. What would you say is what do you think is the biggest issue, the biggest burden on mental health in society at the moment?
Um, so I think, as weird as this is to say, because we do a lot of our work on it, I think social media is a big factor, both on the side of I think our dopamine receptors are fried just because our attention spans are a whole lot lower, and then also the factor of comparison. I think if you could step away from those things, not compare yourself to other people, not mindlessly scroll, it could definitely be a good tool. Find some cool recipes, find some cool workouts, all those things. But I think that is a big factor, especially in like the younger generation. They're obviously going to be the ones, leading the world at some time in the future. And I think that that generation is a little bit more prone to it just because that's, all they ever known. I think that is a big factor that has caused people to be, more depressed, more anxious, the comparison and all the things that I mentioned. So I'm sure a lot of things that you talk about as well, relate to that.
100%. Like, well, it's crazy. I'd say pretty much every guest, probably 98% of our guests will say social media. It really
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
comparison's a
Yeah.
huge one.
Yeah. It's tough.
What's your personal definition of happiness?
Hmm. I would say so. One of my good friends and I, he was my best man. We always talk about w- what is happiness is actually one of the most philosophical questions we talk about pretty much every time we see each other. And it's interesting. Like sometimes we talk about is it just like, a chemical response in your brain? Is it something deeper than that? But I think that happiness I think you create your own happiness. So I don't think happiness is something that you're going to be given from the outside. I think happiness is having, contentment with your life, fulfillment, being in the moment and being present, realizing here right now what you're doing, everything is okay. Bills, even though if you have them or emails you have to get to, even though they may be there right now in this moment, you're all good. It's all fine. So I think a lot of it for me kind of comes down to stepping back and being in the moment and just being content with where you are, realizing everything is right where it needs to be and falling into place. And that could be kind of confused with like contentment, but also happiness. But I feel like that the two words are kind of tied together.
Exactly, and that's sort of yeah what I mean by happiness, contentment. I guess that's a good
Yeah.
way to put it because that really is. Otherwise, it's just highs and lows. But really feeling like you're okay no matter what's happening. You're grounded. You're in the right place. So I love that
I'm
answer.
curious, what's your definition of happiness? I'd want to compare.
Pretty similar to what you said there. I would say feeling like in this moment, day to day, I'm present. I'm where I want to be. I'm around the people I want to be around. I'm living my life authentically. So I think not
That's
trying to
good.
chase it, not trying to find not trying to compare to other people. And I fluctuate in and out of both. I'll fall into comparison. I'll fall into overthinking and all these different things, and I have to continually pull myself back.
Mhm. I think what you said about authentically, I think it was is a great way to put it and kind of ties into like, a lot of what I've been trying to, embody lately. Just being authentic, don't be afraid to be yourself and, what you speak, what you think and all those other things.
Which it's hard to do, but I think it's the only way we can truly be at peace with ourselves because we get taught to put on a mask, especially with men. We get taught to suppress ourselves, but being yourself is like the best
Yeah,
way to
yeah.
be. Yeah.
Well, hey, I'm not afraid to cry sometimes, just be yourself, let it out.
What if you could give one piece of advice to your 18-year-old self? What would that be?
um, I don't know. I think if my 18-year-old self saw what I was now, I feel like he'd be like, whoa. So I would say just just keep going, just keep going. I feel like that kinda highlights a lot of, like, aspects in life. I remember thinking back, like, when I was, depressed in the hospital, itching to get out, go home, just kinda relax and go to sleep or whatever it is, you know? If I just went through that, keep going, it's gonna be okay. I feel like life has an interesting way of showing you new experiences, showing you what you need to see just so you can become your better self. I think reflecting on those a lot of times, is helpful. So, just keep going.
I think that's like the best advice, just that's what I always say. Just keep putting literally one foot in front of the other because when you're going through those hard periods, like exactly what you said there, it feels like there's no end point. You can feel trapped sometimes, but then, it's like the saying, life only makes sense backwards, but must be lived forwards. Because when we reflect on it, we can say, oh, okay, I can see how it connected, but I didn't know when you're stuck, you don't know. But like you just need to take that one step forward every day and eventually it'll get there.
Exactly, and I feel like, some of these words like, put one foot in front of the other, they're, like, very cliche and corny, but at the same time, I feel like they truly resonate and hit more when you've been through an experience like that, and it just, like, makes sense and resonates. So I feel like a lot of times I heard those things in the past and I'm like, "Yeah, duh, you put one step in front of the other," like, but I feel like once you actually experience it, it all makes sense and it kinda ties together.
So true. So true. Well, final question. What are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? So I'm not sure if you've ever played RuneScape in the past or if any of the viewers have played RuneScape, but I kinda think of myself as, like, almost like a RuneScape character or like a video game character. So the way RuneScape was, you had, different levels. So there was like, there's a battle component. So you have like attack, defense. There was other components like, fishing, wood chopping, all those things. And I kind of think of myself as like that sort of video game character. So I try to like level up all aspects of my life. How good can I cook? How, compassionate I am? How kind am I am? How ripped and muscular and strong am I? So I feel like I'm really proud of like the amount of balance that I've had. I feel like I'm the type of person that if I see a weakness, like I need to fix it. I don't want to be a person with weaknesses, which is like, almost like too anal and intense. But I feel like the amount of balance I've had and just trying to level up different parts of my personality and my life has been pretty helpful. And, I'm most proud of that I feel like I try not to neglect things in my life. And if there is a problem, an issue, I tackle it head on. So I feel like it's still a work in progress, but I feel like I'm proud and like how well-rounded I've kind of developed myself to be and, knowledge and all those other things. So not I feel like I'm, like, hyping myself up, it's not intense, but I feel like I'm proud of how far I've come.
No, well, I think it's great. It's a great thing for people to hear as well of looking at, and in the like you said there, in the right way. In a healthy way, personal development, doing it for the right reasons. If people are looking at themselves and trying to tell themselves they're not good enough all the time and things like that, that's a different story. But when you're looking at yourself, thinking, okay, you know what, I'm doing really well in this area, but I really want to work on my fitness, or I want to, my diet needs to be improved, or I need to work on my relationships, or whatever it is, and just looking at it in that way and making those changes, I think that's, such a good thing to do. And we don't do it enough. So being
Yeah,
able to pull
exactly.
your emotion out of it and just look at these categories and how, I think like a video game is a great example of, taking yourself out of it. If I was a video game character, what would I be tweaking? What would I be working on?
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of times, like, video games suck, they suck until you actually learn how to play them, and then you're good. Oftentimes, you have to go through challenges or whatever, like, the storyline is, so I feel like, it also creates, like, that separation too, so you could see, like, into your life from a third person perspective. Because a lot of times, your emotions, your feelings, stress kinda clouds your judgment, and I feel like that sometimes kinda helps you, evaluate things a little bit more holistically too.
Massively, mate. Well, thank you so much for making the time.
Nice, nice.
Where can our guests go if they want to learn more about you? We'll put this in the show notes. So where can we send them?
Yeah, anyone feel free to message me. Anything you want to talk about, anything about my perspective. Generally Instagram is best for messages. Christian Poulos, is just my name. I know it's a little bit weird to spell, so maybe I guess it's here anyway. Just at that. You can also check out my website, christianpoulos.com. If you're interested in anything fitness related, and pretty much same name on all the other platforms. I should be easy to find. I don't think most people have my name.
Perfect. And for anyone listening, make sure to check it out. We'll have all the links in the show notes, so make sure to click on them. And Christian, sorry we missed the first interview, but thank you so much for making time to come and chat, mate. Really enjoyed learning about you.
We did it. I appreciate it, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Thank you to Dr. Christian Poulos for joining me today and offering your insights. And thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and any suggestions for topics you'd like to hear about. Feel free to leave a comment or send a DM. Your feedback is always appreciated. Please don't forget to click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram. It really makes a difference. Thank you so much.